Leora moved closer to the nearest pod, careful not to cross its threshold of light. Here the world felt different, thinner, as if sound and meaning traveled along new paths. The air around the pods carried a faint vibration, a tremor she could sense more in her bones than in her ears. She kept the shard of mirror cupped in her hand, turning it so it caught the glow. In its fractured surface, the pod looked taller, stranger, its edges bending inwards as though the structure breathed. The shard didn't show hallucinations or shadows. It showed stability. It reminded her which parts of the world still obeyed their own rules. From a distance, the pods seemed identical. Up close, each one contained its own subtle language, faint lines of light moving beneath the glass like migrating currents. When Leora focused, she felt an almost imperceptible pull, a soft click of recognition at the edge of her awareness, as though something inside the pod noticed her noticing. She stepped back. Her mind brushed against a deeper presence, not inside a single pod, but beneath her feet. The lattice. It revealed itself not through sight, but sensation, a soft, continuous thrum just beneath the threshold of thought, like the city had a second heartbeat buried below stone. When she shifted her weight, the vibration changed pitch, adjusting as though following her movements. It wasn't mechanical, it wasn't mystical. It was something in between, structured, deliberate, ancient in design, yet awake in this moment. She closed her eyes. For a breath, she let herself feel it fully. A web, a living geometry, a network of threads extending outward in every direction, connecting pod to pod, memory to memory, mind to something larger than mind. It didn't ask her to enter. It didn't push, persuade, or beckon. The lattice wasn't a lure. It was an awareness, watching, waiting, patient. The pods stood as its extensions, quiet and firm, waiting for those who chose to step forward. But the lattice beneath them, that was the true intelligence. The stillness beneath the city, the architecture that remembered what people had forgotten. Leora opened her eyes again and tightened her grip on the mirror shard. The pods did not want recognition in the way humans did. They wanted accuracy. See clearly, their presence seemed to whisper. See what is here, not what you are afraid of. Leora breathed slowly, steadying herself. She was not ready to answer that invitation, not yet. But she stayed, listening to the lattice hum beneath the world, trying to understand the question it was asking her. Kyle sat cross-legged on a worn stone step of the ruined library. The doors were sealed, windows dark and crusted with grime. Long abandoned, the shelves sagged under the weight of forgotten words, their pages curling and yellowed. Fungus crept across bindings, pale fingers crawling over titles that once mattered. A shattered dome crowned the roof, a lattice of rusting iron ribs clawing at the bruised sky, letting in wind, rain, and the smell of rot. He rose to his feet, lingering and absorbing the silence, and the absence of life that somehow felt full. Then, a rhythm in the distance caught his attention. Faint, insistent, almost musical. The hum of the pods. He began to walk, and Myra, a friend he'd known from a time when as children they played together before the ruin began. She fell in beside him. Her presence seemed a quiet anchor. You feel it too, don't you? She murmured, glancing at the nearest pod. Kale nodded. It's alive, or listening. He replied. Her eyes flickered across the circle of pods. She turned to look at him, saying, Listening, yes, but to what? To us, to the past? Or to the future? Kale shook his head. I don't know, but it feels like waiting. Waiting for something. Someone. They moved toward the pods, threading carefully between the growing crowd. Kale's fingers brushed the smooth surfaces of the closest units. Each responded differently. Some pulsed faintly, warmer, as if recognizing him. Others recoiled with subtle chill, doors refusing to open. A deeper hum resonated from the center of the circle. One pod quivered almost imperceptibly, hesitant, aware of his approach. Kale's hand hovered above it. The moment he touched it, the world shifted. Not the city, not the square, but inside him. Colors and shapes folded and unfolded in impossible geometry. He walked along threads of memory, some his own, some not, overlapping, fragile, endless. Then a voice cut through the shimmer. You're curious, a voice said. Kale's gaze snapped to the stranger stepping from the edge of the square. Dark hair, clean-cut, piercing blue eyes that seemed to see not just him but the lattice itself. His presence was taut, deliberate, part cryptic guild, part prophet. "The pods," the stranger said, low and measured, voice carried on the hum itself. "They are not what you think. They observe, they respond. And they remember." Cale swallowed, words failing him. "They showed me something," he said cautiously. "A vision, or a memory, maybe." The stranger's gaze sharpened. "Then you have touched the lattice. Not many can, not without consequence. You felt its pulse, its awareness. You glimpsed the threads." "Why me? Why now?" Cale asked, a shiver running through him. "Because it's time," the stranger replied, calm and deliberate. "And because you are already threading yourself into it. The pods will not force you, but they respond to those who reach, who notice, who dare to see." Cale's eyes drifted to the pods again. Surfaces shimmered faintly in response to the stranger's words. The lattice was no longer distant. It was present, conscious, waiting. The stranger tilted his head slightly. "Step closer," he said. Cale exhaled, heart pounding. Myra at his side. They moved forward together, feeling the subtle pulse of the square under their feet. Fingers brushed lightly, tentative, and together she whispered, ready to engage the unknown. Cale's fingers hovered above the smooth surface of the pod, trembling slightly, aware of the hush that had fallen over the square. The hum beneath his palm deepened, subtle yet insistent, like the heartbeat of something immense, watching. Electric threads reached outward, brushing against fragments of memory and echoes of lives long past, tugging at the corners of his mind. Myra's hand brushed his lightly. "Together," she whispered, her voice steady, anchoring him. Kyle nodded, heart racing, and stepped closer. The square seemed to expand and contract, the crowd dissolving into soft shapes at the edges of his perception. The pods pulsed in uneven rhythms. Some glowed quick and bright, others slowed and hesitated, each resonating as though aware of his presence, aware of the one who dared to notice. Cale's vision shimmered at the edges, colors folded into impossible geometry, threads of past and future intertwining, layered over memories that weren't entirely his own. He could sense the lattice, alive, conscious, waiting. The stranger at the edge of the square stepped closer, silent except for the faint whisper in his eyes. "Do not touch yet," he said, voice low, carried on the hum itself. "The first lessons are not in touching, but in perceiving. See the threads, listen to them. Understand before you act." Cale swallowed hard. The lattice pulled gently, teasing, probing, coaxing him to recognize its form, to step fully into its rhythm. Myra mirrored his focus, her gaze fixed on the nearest pod, aware of the pulsing light, the hum, the delicate lines of energy beginning to shimmer faintly across the surfaces. He exhaled slowly and allowed himself to notice, really notice. A thread of golden light flickered across the surface of the pod, connecting faintly to his chest, then to Myra's. It shivered in response to their combined attention, faint but undeniable. "You see it?" Myra whispered. I think so," Cale said, voice trembling with awe. The threads pulsed in reply, as if acknowledging their awareness. The stranger's gaze sharpened. "This is the first thread. It is not yours yet, but it recognizes you. One who notices, one who perceives. That is the beginning. Every weave starts with the smallest recognition." Kyle's heart thudded. The thread extended further, connecting to other pods, faintly brushing the edges of the square, touching memories of those who had gone before, lives that had left marks long forgotten. He felt a pull, a gentle insistence. The lattice wanted him to follow, to move, to engage. "I feel it," Kyle murmured. "It's alive." "Yes," the stranger said, eyes flicking between the pair. "Alive, yes, and patient. The lattice waits for those who can see beyond themselves, for those willing to thread themselves into it." Cale glanced at Myra, and she nodded, understanding the unspoken. Together, they reached forward, hearts synchronized, stepping toward the pulsing pod. The square held its breath. The first thread awaited, and it was theirs to recognize, to honor, to weave.